For countless millennia, the peoples of the galaxy had regarded the strange, fierce creatures from the planet Earth with a mixture of fascination and trepidation. These Deathworlders, as they were known, possessed unparalleled strength, resilience, and an insatiable curiosity that set them apart from all other sentient races. Their homeworld, shrouded in an atmosphere of noxious gases and battered by powerful storms, seemed to defy the very laws of nature. Yet somehow, the humans not only survived but thrived in this hostile environment. When the Deathworlders first ventured into the broader galactic community, their arrival was met with a combination of awe and unease. The other civilizations marveled at the humans' ingenuity, their ability to adapt to the most extreme conditions, and their boundless energy. Yet there was an undercurrent of fear, a deep-rooted suspicion that these newcomers, forged in the crucible of their deadly home, could pose a threat to the established order of the galaxy. But to the surprise of all, the humans did not seek to conquer or subjugate. Instead, they extended a hand of friendship, eager to share their knowledge and technology, and to learn from the wisdom of the other sentient races. They displayed an insatiable curiosity, probing the mysteries of the cosmos with a fervor that left their galactic counterparts both impressed and bewildered. Slowly but surely, the Deathworlders integrated themselves into the wider galactic society, their boundless energy and ingenuity proving invaluable. They contributed to the advancement of fields as diverse as interstellar navigation, bioengineering, and energy production, sharing their innovations freely and without reservation. The other civilizations, initially wary, began to warm to the humans, recognizing the immense potential they offered. As the decades passed, the Deathworlders became trusted allies, their expertise and problem-solving abilities proving instrumental in solving the myriad challenges that faced the galaxy. From mitigating the effects of cosmic radiation to devising effective countermeasures against the ravages of exotic spaceborne diseases, the humans demonstrated a remarkable aptitude for tackling even the most daunting of tasks. The galactic community, once divided and mistrustful, now found itself united in a newfound appreciation for their Deathworlder friends. The humans, in turn, reveled in the opportunity to explore the wonders of the cosmos, to learn from the diverse cultures and civilizations that populated the stars. A golden age of cooperation and prosperity dawned, with the Deathworlders at the forefront, guiding and protecting their newfound allies. Yet, as with all such golden ages, the seeds of its eventual downfall had already been sown. For within the galactic community, there existed those who viewed the humans' growing influence with deep-seated resentment and fear. They saw the Deathworlders not as allies, but as a threat to the established order, a disruptive force that must be contained and controlled before it was too late. And so, in the shadows, a dangerous faction began to emerge, driven by a toxic blend of xenophobia and a desire for power. They spread whispers of the humans' true, violent nature, sowing seeds of doubt and mistrust among the galactic community. Slowly, but with growing intensity, the seeds of discord took root, threatening to unravel the fragile bonds of unity that had held the galaxy together. As the clouds of suspicion and fear gathered on the horizon, the Deathworlders remained blissfully unaware of the gathering storm. Secure in their newfound friendships and the belief that their kindness and cooperation had won the day, they continued to pour their boundless energy into the betterment of the galaxy, unaware of the looming crisis that would soon test the very foundations of the delicate peace they had helped to build. As the decades passed, the Deathworlders became increasingly integrated into the fabric of the galactic community. Their boundless energy, innovative spirit, and willingness to share their knowledge and technology had earned them the respect and admiration of their newfound allies. The once wary civilizations now saw the humans as trusted partners, integral to the continued progress and prosperity of the cosmos. The Deathworlders, for their part, reveled in the opportunity to explore the wonders of the galaxy. They immersed themselves in the diverse cultures and customs of the sentient races, eager to learn and to share their own unique perspectives. From the towering spires of the Kalan hive cities to the floating archipelagos of the Eldari homeworld, the humans marveled at the ingenuity and resilience of their galactic neighbors and sought to forge lasting bonds of friendship and cooperation. One by one, the humans lent their expertise to the challenges that faced the galaxy. They helped to devise new methods of interstellar navigation, unlocking pathways to distant, uncharted regions of space. They collaborated with xenobiologists to develop revolutionary medical treatments, eradicating diseases that had long plagued sentient life. And when natural disasters or cosmic phenomena threatened to disrupt the delicate balance of the galactic order, the Deathworlders were there, offering their unparalleled problem-solving skills and tireless dedication to the greater good. As the humans' influence and reputation grew, the galactic community began to view them not merely as allies, but as benevolent protectors. The Deathworlders, with their fearsome reputations and uncompromising determination, had become the guardians of the cosmos, safeguarding the interests of all sentient races and ensuring the continued harmony of the stars. Yet, within the corridors of power, a growing unease began to take hold. There were those who viewed the humans' ascendance with a mixture of awe and trepidation. They saw the Deathworlders not as allies, but as a potential threat to the established order, a disruptive force that could upset the balance of power and challenge the dominance of the ancient civilizations. Slowly, a dangerous faction began to emerge, driven by a toxic blend of xenophobia and a lust for power. They whispered of the Deathworlders' true nature, painting the humans as savage, unpredictable creatures whose kindness was nothing more than a facade, a veil concealing their true violent intentions. As the seeds of doubt and mistrust began to take root, tensions within the galactic community began to rise. Skirmishes broke out on the fringes of settled space, with the Deathworlders finding themselves increasingly viewed with suspicion and hostility. Despite their best efforts to maintain the fragile peace, the humans realized that their kindness had been exploited and that they were now faced with a choice: to retreat and abandon their galactic allies, or to stand and fight. It was a decision that would echo through the annals of history, shaping the fate of the galaxy and the very future of sentient life itself. For the Deathworlders, once hailed as the champions of cooperation and progress, were about to unleash a fury that would shake the very foundations of the cosmos, transforming them from benevolent guardians to merciless conquerors in the minds of all who witnessed their metamorphosis. The growing tensions that had been simmering beneath the surface of the galactic community now threatened to boil over into outright conflict. As the whispers of the Deathworlders' true nature spread, like a virulent plague, through the corridors of power, the once warm bonds of trust and cooperation began to fray. The anti-human faction, fueled by a toxic blend of fear and resentment, worked tirelessly to undermine the Deathworlders' standing within the galactic community. They launched a relentless propaganda campaign, painting the humans as savage, unpredictable creatures whose kindness was nothing more than a facade, a veil concealing their true violent intentions. The message resonated with those who had always harbored a deep-seated unease about the Deathworlders' presence in the cosmos. The ancient civilizations, long accustomed to dominance and control, saw the humans' growing influence as a threat to their established order. They rallied to the anti-human faction's cause, driven by a fear of losing their hard-won power and the privilege that came with it. Skirmishes began to break out on the fringes of settled space as the tenuous bonds of unity that had held the galaxy together began to fray. The Deathworlders, once hailed as champions of cooperation and progress, now found themselves increasingly viewed with suspicion and hostility. Their attempts to maintain the fragile peace and reassure their galactic allies fell on deaf ears as the seeds of doubt and mistrust continued to spread. The human ambassadors, once welcomed with open arms, now faced increasingly hostile receptions. They were denied access to vital resources, excluded from important deliberations, and in some cases, even subjected to outright aggression. The Deathworlders, bewildered and dismayed by this sudden shift in attitude, struggled to comprehend the depth of the animosity that had been directed towards them. Yet, despite the growing hostility, the humans remained steadfast in their commitment to their galactic allies. They continued to share their knowledge and technology, offering aid and assistance wherever it was needed. But as the anti-human faction's influence continued to spread, the Deathworlders began to realize that their kindness had been exploited, and that they were now faced with a choice that would shape the course of the galaxy for generations to come. Reluctantly, the humans made their decision. They would not abandon those who had come to rely on their protection and guidance, nor would they allow the hard-earned bonds of trust and cooperation to be severed. With heavy hearts, they began to mobilize their formidable military might, preparing to defend their newfound homes and the beings they had sworn to protect, even if it meant facing the wrath of the very civilizations they had once called allies. The stage was now set for a conflict that would reverberate through the ages, pitting the Deathworlders, once hailed as paragons of virtue, against the very forces they had sought to defend. And as the storm clouds gathered on the horizon, all beings in the galaxy braced themselves for the moment when the humans' kindness would cease, and their true, uncompromising determination would be revealed to the cosmos. The skirmishes that had broken out on the fringes of settled space were merely the prelude to the storm that was about to engulf the galaxy. As the tensions between the Deathworlders and the growing anti-human faction escalated, the fragile peace that had reigned for so long began to crumble. On the edges of charted space, ships clashed, exchanging furious barrages of energy weapons and missiles. The Deathworlders, always ready for a fight, met the aggression of their opponents with a ferocity that caught the ancient civilizations off guard. Their tactics, honed by centuries of struggle on their hostile homeworld, proved to be both innovative and devastatingly effective. Yet, even as the humans emerged victorious from these initial confrontations, they could not help but feel a deep sense of sadness and frustration. They had come to the galaxy as friends, eager to share their knowledge and work alongside their newfound allies in the pursuit of progress and discovery. The thought that their kindness and cooperation had been so thoroughly betrayed cut them to the core. As the conflict continued to escalate, the Deathworlders found themselves increasingly isolated, their pleas for reason and understanding falling on deaf ears. The anti-human faction had succeeded in turning the majority of the galactic community against them, painting the humans as a threat that must be eradicated before they could spread their contagion of disruption and chaos. Facing the prospect of being overwhelmed by sheer numbers, the Deathworlders were forced to make a choice. They could either retreat, abandoning their galactic allies and the homes they had come to cherish, or they could stand their ground and fight, risking the wrath of the very civilizations they had once considered friends. It was a decision that weighed heavily on the hearts and minds of the human commanders. They had grown to love the diversity and wonder of the galaxy, and the thought of turning their backs on it all was almost unbearable. But they also knew that they could not simply stand by and watch as everything they had worked for crumbled around them. With a heavy heart, the Deathworlders made their choice. They would not abandon those who had come to rely on their protection and guidance, nor would they allow the fragile bonds of unity that had held the galaxy together to be severed. It was time to mobilize their formidable military might, to prepare for a conflict that would test the very limits of their strength and resolve. As the human fleets began to gather, the rest of the galactic community braced itself for the onslaught. They had seen the Deathworlders in action, witnessed their tenacity and their uncompromising determination, and now they would face the full fury of a species that had been pushed to the brink, a species that had once been their trusted allies, but had now become their most formidable adversaries. The stage was set for a confrontation that would shake the very foundations of the cosmos. The Deathworlders, once hailed as paragons of virtue, were about to unleash a storm of retribution that would forever change the course of galactic history. And in the days and weeks to come, all beings would bear witness to the moment when the humans' kindness ceased and their true, uncompromising power was revealed. With the tensions reaching a fever pitch and the threat of all-out war looming, the Deathworlders knew that they could no longer afford to remain passive. The hostile actions of the anti-human faction had left them with no choice but to take a stand and defend their newfound homes and allies, even if it meant turning against the very civilizations they had once considered friends. The human commanders, their hearts heavy with the weight of the decision they had made, began to mobilize their forces. They knew that the coming conflict would be unlike anything the galaxy had ever witnessed, a clash of titanic proportions that would test the limits of their strength and resolve. As the Deathworlder fleets amassed, the rest of the galactic community watched with a mixture of awe and trepidation. They had seen the humans in action, witnessed their ferocity and their uncompromising determination, and they knew that they were about to face a force unlike any they had ever encountered. Yet even as the human ships prepared for battle, the Deathworlders held out a final desperate hope that their former allies might see reason. They sent emissaries to the ruling councils of the ancient civilizations, pleading for a return to the path of cooperation and understanding that had once bound them together. But their pleas fell on deaf ears. The anti-human faction had succeeded in poisoning the minds of the galactic community, convincing them that the Deathworlders were a threat that must be eliminated at all costs. The humans' offers of peace and reconciliation were met with scorn and derision, as the ancient civilizations readied themselves for the impending clash. With no other choice left, the Deathworlders steeled themselves for the coming storm. They knew that the stakes could not be higher. The very future of the galaxy hung in the balance. If they failed, not only would their own dreams of a peaceful coexistence be shattered, but the countless beings they had sworn to protect would be left at the mercy of the unforgiving darkness of the cosmos. As the human fleets launched their first strikes, the galaxy held its collective breath. The Deathworlders, once hailed as champions of cooperation and progress, now unleashed a fury that shook the very foundations of the cosmos. Their weapons, forged in the crucible of their hostile homeworld, carved a path of destruction through the enemy ranks, decimating the ancient civilization's once vaunted defenses. The other sentient races, caught in the maelstrom of the conflict, could scarcely believe their eyes. The humans, whom they had once viewed as gentle, almost naive beings, had transformed into unstoppable juggernauts of war, their tactics and strategies honed to a razor's edge by centuries of struggle for survival. As the battle raged on, the Deathworlders fought with a ferocity that belied their outward appearance. They refused to be cowed by the overwhelming numbers of their opponents, their determination fueled by a deep-seated desire to protect the homes and allies they had come to cherish. And in the midst of the chaos, a grim realization began to dawn on the members of the galactic community. The humans were no longer the benevolent protectors they had once been. The Deathworlders had become a force of unparalleled destruction, driven by a single-minded determination to eradicate any who dared to challenge their supremacy. The conflict that had erupted between the Deathworlders and the rest of the galactic community was unlike anything the cosmos had ever witnessed. It was a clash of titans, a maelstrom of destructive power that threatened to tear the very fabric of the stars asunder. As the human fleets surged forward, their weapons blazing, the ancient civilizations found themselves overwhelmed by the sheer ferocity of the Deathworlders' assault. The humans, once viewed as gentle, almost naive beings, had transformed into unstoppable juggernauts of war, their tactics and strategies honed to a razor's edge by centuries of struggle for survival on their hostile homeworld. Planet after planet fell to the relentless human advance as the Deathworlders ruthlessly extinguished any resistance that dared to stand in their way. The once vaunted defenses of the galactic community crumbled before the onslaught, their vaunted technology and numerical superiority proving to be no match for the unbridled determination and adaptability of their adversaries. The other sentient races, caught in the maelstrom of the conflict, could scarcely believe their eyes. They had seen the humans in action, witnessed their tenacity and their willingness to push the boundaries of the possible, but nothing could have prepared them for the sheer scale of the Deathworlders' offensive. In the face of such overwhelming force, the anti-human faction, once so confident in their ability to contain and control the humans, found themselves thrown into disarray. Their carefully laid plans lay in ruins, their strategies rendered obsolete by the relentless onslaught of the Deathworlders. And as the battle raged on, a grim realization began to dawn on the members of the galactic community. The humans were no longer the benevolent protectors they had once been. The Deathworlders had become a force of unparalleled destruction, driven by a single-minded determination to eradicate any who dared to challenge their supremacy. The once proud civilizations, accustomed to dominance and control, now found themselves fighting for their very survival. They scrambled to mount a cohesive defense, but with each passing engagement, it became increasingly clear that they were outmatched and outclassed by their implacable foes. The Deathworlders, for their part, fought with a ferocity that belied their outward appearance. They refused to be cowed by the overwhelming numbers of their opponents, their determination fueled by a deep-seated desire to protect the homes and allies they had come to cherish. And as the battle lines shifted, and the tides of war ebbed and flowed, the members of the galactic community found themselves facing a stark and unsettling realization. The kindness and cooperation that had once defined the humans had been replaced by a cold, ruthless determination to assert their dominance over the cosmos. The galaxy, once a tapestry of wonders and shared prosperity, now found itself engulfed in a maelstrom of destruction, with the Deathworlders at the center of the storm. And as the conflict raged on, all beings who witnessed it knew that they were seeing the moment when the humans' kindness had ceased, and their true, uncompromising power had been unleashed upon the cosmos. As the brutal conflict raged on, the members of the galactic community found themselves increasingly unnerved by the transformation they were witnessing in the Deathworlders. The humans, once hailed as champions of cooperation and progress, had become an unstoppable force of destruction, their tactics and strategies honed to a razor's edge by the unforgiving crucible of their hostile homeworld. Planet after planet fell to the relentless human advance, their vaunted defenses crumbling in the face of the Deathworlders' uncompromising onslaught. The ancient civilizations, their once mighty fleets decimated by the sheer ferocity of the human assault, scrambled to mount a cohesive defense, but to little avail. And as the battle lines shifted, and the tides of war ebbed and flowed, a growing sense of unease began to settle over the galactic community. They had seen the Deathworlders in action, witnessed their tenacity and their willingness to push the boundaries of the possible, but nothing could have prepared them for the sheer scale of the humans' destructive power. The once proud civilizations, accustomed to dominance and control, now found themselves fighting for their very survival. They had underestimated the strength and resolve of their former allies, and the consequences of that misjudgment were becoming increasingly clear. As the conflict dragged on, a grim realization dawned upon the surviving members of the galactic community. The Deathworlders were no longer the benevolent protectors they had once been. The humans had become a force of unparalleled destruction, driven by a single-minded determination to eradicate any who dared to challenge their supremacy. The kindness and cooperation that had once defined the Deathworlders had been replaced by a cold, ruthless determination to assert their dominance over the cosmos. And in the wake of their relentless assault, the galaxy found itself engulfed in a maelstrom of devastation, with the once trusted humans at the very heart of the storm. For the other sentient races, the transformation of the Deathworlders from allies to merciless conquerors was a betrayal that cut deep. They had placed their trust in the humans, believing that their shared values of progress and discovery would guide the course of the galaxy, but now they found themselves facing the consequences of that misplaced faith. The anti-human faction, once so confident in their ability to contain and control the Deathworlders, now found themselves in a desperate struggle for survival. Their carefully laid plans lay in ruins, their strategies rendered obsolete by the sheer scale and intensity of the human assault. And as the conflict raged on, the members of the galactic community were forced to confront a stark and unsettling truth. The Deathworlders, once hailed as the champions of the cosmos, had become the very thing they had sworn to protect their allies against, a force of unbridled destruction that threatened to tear the entire galaxy asunder. The once unassailable trust and respect that had defined the relationship between the humans and their galactic counterparts had been shattered, replaced by a deep-seated fear and resentment that would linger long after the final, echoing shots of the conflict had faded into silence. In the aftermath of the devastating conflict that had engulfed the galaxy, the once proud civilizations found themselves facing a stark and sobering reality. The Deathworlders, whom they had once hailed as champions of cooperation and progress, had become a force of unparalleled destruction, their kindness and benevolence replaced by a cold, ruthless determination to assert their dominance over the cosmos. The war had taken a heavy toll on the galactic community, with countless lives lost and entire worlds reduced to rubble. The ancient empires, their vaunted defenses shattered, now struggled to piece together the shattered remnants of their once mighty dominance. The very foundations of the established order had been irrevocably shaken, and the path forward was shrouded in uncertainty. As the dust settled and the survivors began to take stock of the devastation, a grim realization dawned upon them all. The galaxy would never be the same. The image of the Deathworlders' transformation, from trusted allies to merciless conquerors, had been seared into the collective consciousness of all sentient beings, a testament to the fragility of trust and the consequences of underestimating the might of humanity. The once vibrant tapestry of the cosmos lay in ruins, its colors faded, and its patterns twisted beyond recognition. The ancient civilizations, their pride and power now diminished, found themselves forced to confront the harsh truth that their dominance had been little more than an illusion, easily shattered by the unyielding determination of the Deathworlders. In the face of this overwhelming defeat, the surviving members of the galactic community were forced to reevaluate their perceptions and their beliefs. They had assumed that the humans, with their seemingly boundless capacity for cooperation and understanding, would be content to occupy a supporting role in the grand scheme of the cosmos. But now, they were faced with the sobering reality that the Deathworlders' ambitions knew no limits, and that their thirst for power and control had become an all-consuming obsession. The scars of the conflict would linger for generations, a constant reminder of the fragility of the bonds that had once held the galaxy together. The once vibrant exchange of ideas and cultures had been replaced by a wary, distrustful atmosphere, as the various sentient races struggled to come to terms with the harsh truth that their destiny was no longer in their own hands. In the wake of the Deathworlders' rampage, a new era dawned, one marked by a profound sense of uncertainty and dread. The galaxy, once a tapestry of wonders and shared prosperity, now lay in ruins, its future uncertain, and its very existence threatened by the merciless ambition of the once trusted humans. And in the minds of all who had witnessed the transformation of the Deathworlders, the image of their kindness giving way to unbridled destruction would forever be seared, a testament to the fragility of trust and the consequences of underestimating the might of a species forged in the crucible of a hostile homeworld. The galaxy would never be the same, and the legacy of the Deathworlders' rise and fall would echo through the ages, a cautionary tale of the dangers of complacency and the power of a species unwilling to bow to the established order of the cosmos.